Hey everyone, back for another Root Digital game, and here we are doing a special Halloween edition where I decided to go for a Vagabond game, choosing the Scoundrel Vagabond, one of my favorite characters. With me in this game are three of my friends from Discord. We've got Decoy, Kaz, and Q, and let me tell you, this was a really fun and interesting game right off the bat. So let's dive right into it. Of course, fittingly, we had to choose the autumn map since it is the autumn season we're in right now. And taking a look at my hand, I've got two ambush cards, one of them being a bird, and another mouse card, which is Master Engravers. The Master Engravers craft would be nice, but for the Scoundrel, it's a little bit of a tall order. I'd say it's probably not going to happen unless I were to choose the Adventurer or the Tinker, who start with a hammer, but that's okay. I'll probably end up using it as an aid action to just get myself some points. Of course, we're going to go straight for the Scoundrel, not even going to think about it. And right off the bat, we've got a little bit of a red alert, and that's that the Qeyrie has chosen to choose the charismatic leader. And that looks like it's going to turn into a God of War situation, which is the no turmoil, charismatic, 2 birds and recruit, 1 bird build, and then just move and battle your way to victory. One of the most scary builds in all of Root, so we're going to have to look out for that if we want to have any type of chance in this game. I get to go first, which is a very nice little benefit. One little mistake that I made at the start of this game is that I haven't even looked at my quests yet. This is always something that you should take consideration of because you could sneak a few points here and there. So I'm taking a look at them now, but I already revealed information by opening up the ruins, so it would have been too late. But I already had a plan for my actions and my cards, as you'll see, so the quests weren't really that much of a factor, but always a good idea to pay attention to that. So we're going to go ahead and aid the Marquise de Cat, the Fox Ambush. And then we're going to move and do 2 more aids with the cats in order to get to the next level of friendship and get 3 total points of aid in 1 turn from one of the factions. This might seem like I'm helping them a little bit too much, and the reason I chose to do this is because of the potential for God of War. One of the best bulwarks against a very aggressive Qeyrie is a bulky cat and or lizard player in the mix, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to prop up the cats player, who is in 3rd seat, which is not so great, so we'll just give Kaz a little bit of a boost. So I'm already starting a little bit of the table talk. Ooh, the lizards have a hammer, which would be lovely if they could craft it, but I have a strong feeling they're not going to do that this early in the game. So I'm trying to get a little bit of goodwill from the cats for those 3 cards that I just aided them. Lizards having a little rough opening, being forced to start in a clearing with only 1 building slot is going to really slow them down, so I'm probably going to want to aid lizards a few times just to give them something of a head start as well. So far for the cat's first turn, it looks a little bit familiar. It's a build, recruiter, then overwork, and typically we see the building of a sawmill at this point. That way, going into turn 2, the cats would have an extra sawmill, so they would have 2 wood for the next building on that turn. But we're going to see something a little bit different, and that's because as we know, the cats got a bird card from me. And they went for a third recruiter, which is very interesting. So they had to overwork twice to get that, and then use Hawks for Hire in order to get that build off, and another Hawks for Hire in order to do a recruit. So this is something you don't see too often, and the benefit of it is that they get a couple more warriors, and they get to draw 2 cards on their first turn, which is something the cats almost never get to do. And of course, there's the God of War opening, which is a suited card that matches the home roost, allowing them to move, and the bird card and build. So they're off to the races. Good thing that they're in 4th seat. Of course, we know that the cats have that fox ambush that they're probably saving for a field hospitals rather than hit the God of War Qeyrie. That's not really going to do a whole lot just yet. So my plan for this turn, like I said, is to try and get as many points as I can from aid. So we're going to move and move again in order to use something to aid the Lizards player, who I'm still at 0 relationship with. So I can't actually aid the cats. I could, but it wouldn't give me any benefit. So I'm aiming for the little lizard in that rabbit clearing. And I got a 3rd boot from the ruin, not the most useful thing for the Scoundrel, but hey, maybe we'll get to have that meme of all 5 boots in the satchel at some point. That would be exciting. Oh, that is huge! Getting Root Tea this early in the game is so nice. I have to go find that hammer, but it's in one of the ruins, so I'm guaranteed to get it at some point. And if we're lucky, the lizard player might craft that hammer that we know they still have. But if they're wise, they won't just give it to me right away. They'll probably hang on to it for a little longer. Yeah, this is really rough for the lizards. They are fortunately able to get a foothold in the northern rabbit clearing, and probably soon they'll be able to get their 2nd garden in there. But because the birds moved south into that fox clearing where they were getting set up, it's going to be pretty hard to get their garden in there. They're going to have to get a few more warriors or hope that the Qeyrie moves something out. Because they already have a fox garden in the northwest, they only really need 1 garden in that clearing where the birds have taken, which is easy enough because the birds are never going to fill a 2nd building slot. So the cats have placed their recruiters in really smart, optimal positions. As you see, everything is creating a sort of buffer against the birds. And all 3 of these clearings already have 3 warriors, which is fantastic. It just means it's more stuff. Oh, no, spoke too soon. But it's a lot for the Qeyrie to chew through if they want to keep advancing. So that's really clever positioning of the cats. And this is what I like to see. So instead we're going to see an overwork action. We're getting that recruit anyway. And man, this is a little bit risky. They're leaving behind 1 wood for their next turn, but it's only defended by 1 warrior, so that's a really tempting spot. And I don't think anyone can really do anything about it at the moment because the Qeyrie needs to have a move in fox and a move in rabbit in order to reach it. So that they probably planned that quite well, actually, that overwork in order to start their next turn with 3 wood. So they're going to use that mouse move just to set up a safety build in case this battle doesn't go great. And it doesn't go great. A 3-3 roll is a lot of losses on both sides. That's a very painful battle for both of them. But what it did was it very interestingly left a building completely defenseless. And guess who's up next? So I'm just timing my moves and considering what I could possibly get in that ruin. So the two options are a bag and the hammer. Hammer would be nice because then I could immediately craft that tea because I would be in a mouse clearing. Unfortunately, I would be over my satchel limit, so I'll have to ditch that boot. The other option is that I draw a bag, and okay, then I don't have to drop anything, but then I have to wait a whole other turn to get that tea. So we're hoping for a hammer, and unfortunately I got the bag, which means the hammer is, oh joy, in the last clearing. And why not? We're gonna just pop that building and just give ourselves a free point. Sorry cats, but you know, this is opportunism, not charity that we're running over here. And I didn't really need to take this move. I really just did it because I felt that that empty clearing was a just beautiful, tempting spot for the Qeyrie to go on their next turn. I just wanted to not be the battle that the Qeyrie ends up having to do. So I just moved to a much more secure location. So now the lizards have got their fox garden, their second fox garden over on the far right, and this is good for two reasons. One is that the lizards can now start drawing more. It's their first pair of gardens. It's a little bit late, but they're now getting their second pair right away in rabbit. But the big consequence for the Qeyrie is that now that there's a garden in there, the Qeyrie cannot move through. They can't easily access that mouse clearing that's completely empty without first going through Texas, which is the central fox clearing that's commonly called Texas. Shout out to Waterman. Now, of course, the lizards are going to craft false orders instead of that hammer, but you know, they're taking a little time. Nah, I think they're still considering that hammer, but again, they probably think it's too early. But luckily, I'm getting that hammer next turn. It's a beautiful field hospitals. Being able to drop a card to field hospitals 3 warriors is always a good feeling. So sometimes you don't hate it when that happens as the cats, but you know, I feel like the cats would probably love to have a warrior lingering there right now. So the gamble paid off. That wood that we were talking about before survived, and they were able to get a build off, but they're gonna undo it, probably think about where they'd like everything to be. Yeah, they really don't want to lose control of that central mouse clearing. Now that I've moved through, there's 3 building slots there, which is so valuable for the cats to maintain control of that clearing. I don't know how much luck they're gonna have because the Qeyrie is just dead set on there. There's not a whole lot of spaces for the Qeyrie to go with that garden, so they're gonna have to start plowing through at some point. Yeah, I don't think Kaz was very happy about that crossbowing the recruiter, but hey, Scoundrel's got a scoundrel, right? And of course, I chose to do it with a crossbow instead of a sword because the sword just opens up the chances of getting ambushed, and the crossbow doesn't. The sword would have been better had I already been hostile with the cats, because then I would have got 2 points for it, but seeing as I'm not hostile with the cats, it's better to take it out with the crossbow, because it's just secure. So the building orders are looking pretty good for the cats. Having that third recruiter is so critical, especially in this matchup with a God of War Qeyrie, and the lizards are just starting to overwhelm the board with their presence. You really want to be pumping out warriors a lot and drawing the 2 cards in order to make good use out of the field hospitals. And as we can see, the birds just crafted Propaganda Bureau, and that is super interesting of a craft. The Propaganda Bureau card goes really well with factions that don't have a lot of warriors but have a lot of cards to spare. The Qeyrie's the other way around. So the Charismatic has a lot of warriors and not a ton of cards. So when you're going to use Propaganda Bureau as Qeyrie, it's probably going to be very deliberate little moves that give you rule and battle advantage to make something powerful happen. Like this. That Propaganda Bureau, it gave them rule of Texas without even having to perform the battle. Perfect. Oh. Big battle against the lizards, but fortunately for them, they did not lose their entire stack of lizards. Yeah, I think birds want nothing more than to get rid of that pesky fox garden overtop their roost. It's really cutting into their ability to escape to the bottom right of the map. I really like the lizards for that reason. They can kind of use their gardens to channel their opponent's movement. Now, of course, the most important thing is to get that hammer from the ruin. Gonna go straight into the mouse clearing, craft that tea. I just got Root Digital on this new device, so it's giving me all the little, hey, did you know this is how this works? So thanks a lot, Digital. None of these quests have been particularly helpful for me, but at least they are going to be manageable now that I don't need my torch anymore. It's whenever there's a torch quest, you're kind of not able to lean into quests for the first couple of turns because that torch is just mandatory for getting into the ruins, and your questing really takes off later. And of course I had a tea quest, which is always just such a drag. So we saw very interesting false orders, getting the bird warrior, the lone bird warrior, away from that northern starting clearing and exposing their early roost as being defenseless at this point. And it looks like they're going to go and battle it. Very interesting. And there's a reason for this. If you look at the decree, they have 2 mouse moves that they have to do, which means that that roost is critical for their ability to actually execute those mouse moves. So this was just a brutal attack by the lizards. I love it. Oh, and we're getting a garden in there as well, making it even harder to get through. Exciting stuff. The lizards are really coming online, and I'm just checking the discard. There's yeah, all 3 of the root T cards are now discarded already, so that one that I have is probably the last I'm going to get. So I'm just going to have to make do with 5 actions or 5 refreshes per turn. And that hammer just keeps being revealed to me, just in my face. You can't have it. As we can see, lizards are really considering that hammer craft at this point, and I'm just begging for it, but how greedy are the lizards feeling? Thing is, For most other factions, you can say, oh, I'll just craft it later, I'll just craft it later. But as lizards, if the outcast changes away from fox, then you could lose any opportunity to craft that hammer ever again. So it really is a debate. That's why lizards are considering whether or not to craft it, because if we see a turmoil or something, or someone discards 2-3 cards, that could swing it away from fox, and then they miss out on those 2 victory points. And I'm just pointing that out, even though the Lizards player is very much aware of that. Just doing a little politicking. They know what I'm doing. So the Cats player is deciding to fill up that second building slot in the central mouse and do a recruit action, which is great. The only vulnerable clearing on this chain... Oh, spoke too soon. So they are moving in to try and defend the building chain. Because the birds have seized Texas, they now need to maintain some kind of continuous line of rule in order to maintain their building of that central clearing. And they're protecting it by maneuvering some of their warriors around, which is really clever. You don't want to lose access to your building chain. I'm surprised that they don't simply abandon Texas and get those warriors into more defensive positions, but maybe there's a plan for it there, or maybe they're just hoping to continue to create problems for the birds. But I think the birds just have that as their new centralized location now that they've lost their homeland. Oh, there's coffin makers. Okay, we don't have to worry about coffin makers anymore. It's going in move. Oh, what kind of headache. Birds must be so annoyed right now losing that mouse clearing, that roost. Yeah, they're gonna have to... See, importantly, they maintained rule of the clearing that they left, because now they have to move out of mouse twice. This is such a weird move sequence that the birds have just... They have no choice, they have to do it like this. And now, this is where I actually kind of dropped the ball in terms of my analysis of the situation. I thought that if the lizards pull their ambush card, then that could cause the turmoil to happen, but I actually forgot that the birds have Propaganda Bureau. So it turns out it's a much better card than I thought it was, because they can just swap out a warrior in that southern fox clearing in order to gain rule and then plant their roost there if the battle goes haywire. And notice how long the lizard player is thinking about this ambush. That's because good players don't just do this gut instinct, oh, you attack me? Ambush, take that. You actually should think wisely about every ambush that you play and how it's going to affect the battle, how it's going to affect rule after the fact, and everything like that. And for the lizards, there's that extra consideration of the outcast, as well as having one fewer card with which to take your daylight actions. So ambush cards have a lot more nuance that I think getting good with that nuance is one of those stepping stones to becoming a better root player. So he's not just thinking about it, there's this whole dialogue in the chat of, will you, won't you, well, what if I do this? So this is a table talk moment in digital over whether or not to play the ambush. And that was a very painful roll. Yeah, see, and they ended up losing the ambush anyway. So the bird ambush was probably what they had, and it went to the discard. Yeah, I think that was a big priority for the birds to regain that or any mouse clearing, and the cats did a pretty good job of preserving their central mouse clearing, because getting through 4 warriors would have been a lot harder than getting through 2 of the lizards. So now I can finally start considering my quests and weaving those into my normal actions. So straight away, I have 3 boots already, so I don't need another boot, but I wouldn't mind grabbing another bag. But first we're going to do the quest just to see what I get in case there's something a little bit better. And of course, I get the greatest card ever for the Vagabond, League of Adventurous Mice. Now, yeah, as you might know, that is dead tech. You cannot use that card as the Vagabond because you don't have a crafted items box. You have a satchel. So we're going to get that bag. I don't hate crafting swap meat either, if that were another consideration. However, items are just so much more important for the Vagabond than cool abilities, although some of them are definitely worthwhile. So we're going to gift that League of Adventurous Mice to the Qeyrie, partially because I just wanted a point, but also when you give an opponent League of Adventurous Mice as the Vagabond, it's sort of a tacit encouragement to say, hey, you want to craft more items, right? They work really well for you. You can take extra actions. So we'll see if they end up crafting it or not. They might just chuck it into the decree, but it's part of the thinking when you aid specific cards that they could have the potential to craft, as they can because they have a mouse roost at the moment. Ooh, what a roll. Well, didn't end up mattering. It was really just for that nice roost, which now, because there's a garden there, and I'm guessing they're going to defend it a little bit more strongly, that is a roost they're never going to get back because of the garden. And the lizards don't even really need to place another garden in that slot just because it adds more liability with no benefit. It doesn't actually do anything to get a 3rd garden because it doesn't help you with scoring. It might help you with crafting if you're going to do a big crafting move, but overall, unless you're crafting something amazing or a whole bunch of different items, I just don't think it's worth it to get a 3rd garden of a suit. And now we'll see. Yes! Finally! Yeah, they did a very good job of having some discipline and waiting around a little bit in order to draw out that hammercraft. And they're lucky that the outcast didn't change. And as you can see, I'm very happy about that. Now, all of these quests are terrible except that one on the far right, so I will be able to accomplish that last, the guard duty, I think it was, the mouse quest for the torch and a sword. I don't really feel like battling just yet, so the sword is fine being used as a quest item. Man, look at that. What a beautiful chain of buildings and clearings for the cats. I pointed this out in my cats video as well, but distributing your recruiters is so important. Look at how each clearing is fairly well defended, save that sensitive one down in the south of that fox clearing, but it's much better to build out your recruiters in separate clearings, so every time you recruit, you're pumping up your distributed chain of ruled clearings, rather than putting all of your recruiters in the same clearing and then you recruit, and you just make a big ball of cats, right? But now you have to use a march action to distribute them again, which is how you want them. So this is definitely a very nice build order that the cats are running. Fairly even scores as well. Lizards are already at 14. They had a very slow start, being forced into a single slot clearing, and they've just made really good work of the control of the God of War Qeyrie, and that's why the Qeyrie are currently in last place, although they did start last. So they're putting 2 cards into their decree this turn, although they're going to swap one out. Oh, and that card that I aided them, it looks like it's going to be used to battle me. Yeah, that one really backfired, but oh well. So crafting Fox Partisans is actually really scary as the God of War Qeyrie, because now they'll just be able to hammer away at those Fox clearings. Even though I'm not currently in a Fox clearing, it's such a threat knowing that they have their battle rolls being a little bit more secure with that. Uh-oh, and I think we know where they're planning on battling. Yeah, the Fox spot for the cats is currently their most sensitive. Luckily for the cats, they still have their chain of ruled buildings because the Qeyrie have had to abandon Texas in order to do this little play. Yeah, cats are not happy at the moment. So that Fox Partisans and the fact there's just fewer cats down there and there's already an open building slot, it's a no-brainer that that's where they were going to end up going. Oh, and they have to punch me. My first punch of the game. This is something I do actually like a lot about the Scoundrel, in that it's one of the weaker Vagabonds, so the players don't really have to punch you so early. Although I'm in good shape, I'm steadily scoring, I've been working my aid engine and crafting up a bit, so I'm moving on ahead, but yeah, you don't like to get punched. Rather just slip between the cracks, but God of War Qeyrie can just be a jack of all trades. Yeah, another very interesting ambush. I think that this was a time when you maybe don't use the ambush just because the birds brought so many warriors to the battle, and if you save it, you can just use field hospitals and fight another day. But cats decided to use it, and birds rolled terribly. And this is very interesting. So they rolled so badly, and even with their partisan card, they weren't able to take out that workshop. And that's pretty nice. That means that the cats will be able to craft something if they need to on their next turn. Thank you, Digital. I've got 1,000 games played on the app, but you know, this is a new device, so I gotta learn all the rules. So we're gonna go ahead and aid the lizards because we definitely want to get that hammer. Because as we just learned from that pop-up, I have damaged items, and I can use a hammer to fix my damaged items. So we're gonna aid the lizards once, get a nice shiny hammer for it, and we're gonna probably want to aid them again, just because it gets us 2 points, right? There's no sense in just aiding once. We're gonna aid again, and we will do that using the item that we're crafting right now. So the order of what you do can sometimes matter. Sometimes I don't think about that too much in the strategy of what item I'm going to use, but that's actually really important when you're running aid strategy, is to consider what you're going to exhaust for the aid and how you're going to use the rest of your items for the rest of the turn. So I gave 2 swap meats, which is fine. They can only craft one of them. And I've got the leftover boot action that I can now use to do this quest. Woo, yeah. So this is a turn. Oh man, and look at that. The next quest was also a mouse, which means I get 3 points for that quest. And I could repair this item and then choose to do the quest immediately because it's a bag boot quest. Of course, the problem with that is exhausting a bag is usually terrible because I'm gonna have to drop a bunch of items for doing that. Oh, but soon that won't be a problem because I just drew another bag. So I'll probably end up doing that mouse quest in the near future, especially now that I'm gonna have a third bag. But it's also a nice thing to keep in your back pocket for a winning turn, to just exhaust all of your track items like coins and tea and bags to do questing and aiding for the win. But I really like the efficiency of that turn. Every item mattered. So I'm tallying up the other bags. I just saw that all 3 of the other bag item cards are in the discard pile, so I currently have the only card that can craft a bag, which is, it's nice. Just a little bit of a breath of relief, I guess. Oh, and look at that! The surviving fox workshop that the birds were not able to hit ended up allowing the cats to craft false orders, and who knows how that's going to get used in the future. That is, wow, very lucky for the cats to have kept that workshop. And look at the dangerous situation. This is something that can be very easy to overlook, but the cats are in really nice position right now to be able to surge forward because they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sawmills and a wood that's sitting right there. So that means on their next turn they can accumulate and build using 6 wood, which is the equivalent of 6 or sometimes 7 victory points. That's a big burst that they're capable of doing. That doesn't mean that they're going to win next turn, but they definitely are in position to get themselves to that point. And now that they've eliminated that Qeyrie roost, they won't be able to build because they're out of actions, but don't know if that ended up being somewhat of a gift for the Qeyrie because now they have an easier place to go and plant their next roost. Maybe it's distracting, sort of diverting attention from elsewhere, which is pretty smart actually. Yeah, this is interesting. We're all tied currently. I think, if I have to be honest, I don't know who's in the best position at this point. I think it all depends on who the birds decide to hit. And we're all just saying, oh, it's not me, it's not me, it's them, it's them. Yeah, so I'm pointing out that the cats have a ton of sawmills, which is huge for scoring potential. Oh, wow. Birds just crafted Corvid planners, which is so powerful, especially in this matchup where you've got these garden walls that are just locking you off from all of the good spots you want to get to. This opens up the map completely. So I'm pointing out This is all a bunch of table talk that's happening. Pointing out that there are indeed some building slots that the cats can use. That's the most important thing, is sawmills and open building slots. So Qeyrie still have that Fox Partisans, but they only have one battle that's a bird that they can do in a fox clearing. The other two are mouse. So they might end up just bringing enough warriors into Texas in order to replant the roost, or they might go for some types of violent play, especially seeing that there's only 3 cat warriors defending 3 pieces of cardboard. There's a wood left over, a sawmill, and a workshop. And that workshop has a lot of potential. They don't know this, but you know, I have the bag, but that workshop could potentially get them a bag point or 2 victory points from a T if the deck is already reshuffled. Not sure if they are aware of where the T are as much as the Vagabond is, but yeah, that could be something they could use. So the cats are pointing out that I am at a very strong relationship level, which is something you don't see too often when the Vagabond player doesn't have any coins. I've just been trying to be very, very deliberate and intentional with every aid action, which is what you guys should do. So I'm pointing out that yes, I am at very high relationships with a bunch of players, but with 1 card in my hand and only really 1 quest that I can do, and not even a good one at that, I don't have the ability to draw a bunch of cards to pump out aid and start farming for 8 points. And all these weird, eerie move back, move forward, it's just making my head spin. Whew. Wait, oh, that's right. For a second I forgot that they had Corvid planners. Well, that makes this easier. I gotta break 2 more items, and yeah, this is at the point where it starts to get to be a bit of a harder decision. So I have to consider what I'm going to use, and I have to look at the quests and things like that. Having 3 boots means that one of them is probably going to be damaged, and yeah, the crossbow is typically one of those items that you don't mind having damaged because it's not terribly practical in a lot of cases. It's good for the quest, and it's good for whittling down opposition, which I don't necessarily want to do just yet. And you usually do that before a whole slew of battles, but I only have 1 sword. So now I have to break more items. Why? It's probably the right move too, because I was first in turn order, so we are mostly all tied in points, but of course I'm next in that queue, so I'm gonna emerge victorious if they don't start attacking me, so it's probably for the best. Another ambush! Rough! Wow, but that one was definitely worth it because the Qeyrie only had 2 warriors, so it completely protected that clearing. I wonder if the cats already had that ambush and they left those 3 pieces of cardboard there as a sort of bait, or if they lucked into the ambush. I would venture to bet that Kaz had the ambush and therefore felt a little bit more secure. Very, very devious. So obviously I'm going to refresh my items that are undamaged, and then I'm going to have to do a little bit more planning. So it's at this point that you might start to question whether or not going into the forest is a good idea, because I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 damaged items and only 4 non-track items that are undamaged. So it wouldn't be a terrible idea, but I feel like the other 2, especially the lizards and cats, are just zooming ahead, and I just need to maintain my point scoring tempo. So we're gonna go and craft that bag. And the magical number when it comes to exhausting bags is to have 3. Having 3 empty slots, see those 3 slots in my satchel, that means that you're able to exhaust a bag and not discard anything. Because you exhaust a bag, you lose 2 slots in your satchel, and the bag has to now go into the satchel. Meaning that as long as you have 3 or more empty slots in the bag, you can exhaust one of your bags and not have to discard anything. So I'm considering doing that right now. So we're going to repair the boot, which is needed for that errand? Is it? Or is it logistics help? I don't remember what it's called. Logistics help, there you go. So we're gonna take 3 victory points for that quest, and let's take a look at the next quest. We'll take a look at that next. Oh, coins is so nice. Normally that's something that's very hard for a vagabond to craft themselves, but having that hammer is definitely nice. That's one of the big reasons the hammer is so important, because 1, it means that these damaged items aren't hurting me that much because I can kind of repair them as I go, and 2, it unlocks the ability to craft coins and swords and stuff like that. But I've been getting good draws this game in general. A lot of items, and I even drew my own tea. No complaints. Man, this lizard scoring engine is so scary. They're just getting 4 points a turn just off of these scores. This is an interesting one. Planting that charm, using Charm Offensive to plant a 3rd garden is a little bit risky, and I'm not sure if they have a plan for that or if it was intended to cut off the birds. But the fact that they have corvid planters, the birds do, means that that garden isn't actually locking off the Qeyrie the way that it normally would. And this is why corvid planters is such a strong craft for the Qeyrie in this matchup, especially when you have a very talented lizards player who's able to use their rule efficiency well. Yeah, so they're crafting Charm Offensive, which is famously not the best card for the lizards, but it could come in handy if the lizards get checked really hard and they have to discard some cards. So that was a very interesting false orders play, and I cut out a little bit in this turn because they were really considering how and if to use the false orders, and my theory of what they were going for is that they're weakening the lizard position in that fox clearing in order to entice the birds to go for that clearing instead of after the cats themselves. And I think that's really smart. That's a very interesting way to use false orders, and because of the timing of birdsong, you have to think through your whole turn before you even decide to use the false orders or not. So that's probably why their turn lasted a little bit longer, and I cut some of it out because they were considering the entirety of the turn, and the rest of the turn went by really quickly. But now we're running into a little bit of a problem, and that's that the cats truly are running out of building slots now. So they're going to try and open one up. And they did it. Very nice battle. Oh man, and an extra action at that. Beautiful. Jeez, cats are at 25 points. Now, it's actually really convoluted of how to stop the cats at this point as well, because battling them really just allows them to recover their warriors through field hospitals, and then just opens up building slots that they can then march back in rebuild and just win the game because they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sawmills, more than enough in terms of points to win. If ever you felt like the God of War Qeyrie is just unstoppable and a well-experienced Qeyrie player is just completely without any limits once they get the God of War unlocked, take a look at this game. We are doing a very good job of creating headaches for the Qeyrie player. The decree is getting out of hand. We're knocking back their roost growth, so their point scoring is fairly limited, battling them here and there so that they have a harder and harder time ruling clearings in order to get their builds off. And what I've done is aiding primarily the other two in order to bulk them up so that they can have that potential to hurt the birds. And now they're currently in last place despite the fact that Decoy is an extremely skilled Qeyrie player. So God of War, don't give up. Just gotta create some problems for them. Put a lot of stuff in their way. And ooh. Wow. 2 not great rolls and a perfect roll on the last battle. So I actually took quite a lot of time thinking about this turn and going through all of my options between the quests and crafting the coins. And I have to juggle all of this stuff, all of these questions of how to make this turn as efficient for points as possible, while also trying to make sure that the cats and the lizards don't just win on their turn, right? So I'm thinking about how many points can the lizards score? Probably at least 4 from their gardens from scoring, and then if they have coins and they maintain that rabbit, then I'm cooked. If the cats have the other tea or something and they're able to craft it, and then they march in, build that sawmill, I'm cooked. Birds probably can't close out the win, but you know, if they get really aggressive and some good rolls or a double build or something, they could pull away from it. So I have to think about how to use all my actions to check the opponents while also getting my scoring up as much as possible. Of course, the Scoundrel is one of the least powerful and least aggressive of all the Vagabonds, so it's a tall order to say that the Scoundrel should be doing some policing and checking the leaders. But of course, the Scoundrel does have an ace up its sleeve, and that is the biggest and most powerful way that it can check a leader. So in the end, that's what I ended up deciding to do. So we're gonna refresh all these items. And now I'm still kind of thinking about how I'm going to maybe work the coins involved. So you can see, even at this point, I'm still not 100% sure of how I want to run through this turn. Do I want to craft the coins now, get up to 25 points? But the problem with that is that then I won't be able to repair my torch and execute my big plan. Alright, and here we go. We're gonna go for the big nuclear blast! Blah! Unfortunately, the lizards had placed some warriors in there. I don't know what exactly the plan with that was, but that blast removed a warrior of each enemy faction, which means that now I'm hostile with everyone. No more aiding for me. And I wanted to do that, A, because it made me hostile with the cats, so that I could go in there and attack that building for 2 points instead of just 1. That's now defenseless because of the Qeyrie battles. But also, nuking the Texas clearing is going to create another big problem for the table, because now the cats are going to have a much harder time accessing that empty clearing with a whole bunch of empty slots. The birds are going to have a hard time getting their decree to work, and just have to pray that the lizards can't win it either. So did kind of everything that I could to make sure that everyone else can't just win on this turn. The one thing that I really struggled with was, do I stay in that clearing just after being nuked, which is a good way to ensure that people can't come in and battle you. So I could have just stayed in the ashy ruins of the blast and no one would have been able to battle me. I could have emerged, crafted the coins, done a few things and win. But the problem is then I'm leaving that victory point there, just sitting there, and the cats probably would have made some type of use of that, or someone else would have got the point. So it was a big dilemma of whether or not to leave the scorched earth clearing and hit the building. And here we have another highly consequential battle with an ambush. So the Qeyrie has to consider whether or not to spend their card to protect their roost up there. It's a big negotiation process. Charm Offensive is being brought up, so... Ooh, not quite enough to take out that roost. So I'm looking at my quest and I realized that on the next turn, if I just move into Rabbit, I can craft the coins, getting me 3 points, bring me to 29, and then I could do a quest, or I could just battle a warrior, hope to not get a 0-0, and win the game. So I'm really, really close to winning. The only way that I could lose is if they battle me to the point where I have to damage my hammer, or my quest items, or just a sword. Because I can take a bunch of hits, I'll be okay if they hit me once or twice, but if they battle me down enough that I don't have those specific items to score the 4 points I need, then I have to go into the forest, and by then someone else is going to win. So it was a big risk to leave the Scorched Earth clearing, but we'll see how that works out. Fortunately, I was the one to to draw the Root T card, because if the cats had drawn it, then they could have crafted it right now and got to 27, and then done a little shifty shift, move some of their warriors. So 2 marches would have enabled them to rule that mouse clearing, and then a build action. So march, build for 3 points, and then they would have just won. So yeah, thank goodness that I drew the Root T card and not them. But are they going to be able to find 5 points? Now that that nexus point has been completely removed for them, they have to go the long way. Yeah, Qeyrie still has that... Oh! They still don't want to play the ambush, and a terrible roll. They really needed a miracle of a 3-0 in order to get the... Actually, that still wouldn't have worked. Yeah, then the Qeyrie would have still had 3 ruling pieces, and the cats wouldn't have been able to build there. But valiant effort. I think that that Scorched Earth was particularly nasty against the cats. But it makes sense, because they probably would have won that turn had I not done that. So the Qeyrie has a big choice right now. They could pummel me down and keep me from winning, because I think that they understand well enough that I could probably find a win on my turn. Just 4 points for the Vagabond is not that hard to find. Or they could just stretch out and try to find a win for themselves. Is 8 points even possible? I cut out some of the footage. As you can see, the timer's going off already. They took a little bit of time to make that decision, and let's see how that goes. So they're going to start shifting around, and if we count up their points, if they're able to get the build, they'll have 4 roosts, which is 3 points. Right? It's almost always 1 less than the number of roosts they've got, so that would bring them to 25, and they'd have to battle down and hit 5 more pieces of cardboard, which, if we look at what the cats have, 1 in the bottom right, and 2, 3, 4, 5, if we include all of those wood and sawmill on the far left. So they are really hoping for some very, very good lucky rolls in order to smack through all of those clearings. Oh, the first roll was good! And we're seeing an ambush. The second roll was good too! So now they need to hit, in this battle, they actually have to get every piece of cardboard in here. Oh, terrible. Yeah, then that's it. They couldn't win now because they leave behind a piece of cardboard in that clearing, and they needed another battle in order to hit the cats in the bottom right. And even then they would have had to roll a 3. Wow, what a play. Yeah, it would have worked too. And again, Corvid Planners was able to get them around that garden choke point in the northwest corner. So Corvid Planners, very strong, very good crafts that the Qeyrie got this turn, and they came so close. Look at this. Move on to evening, and it's 29 points. That hurts, but that was definitely the exciting moment for all of us. If they had just rolled a 2, they would have won on that last battle. So we're going to easily just come in here and close off the game. Oh, man, what a match. So we're gonna craft the coins, of course. Yeah. Did you know that coins give you extra card draw? So we're gonna move up into this clearing here. And I could just do this quest for 1 point, but I thought, that's a little bit lame. So why don't we just do a battle, and if I hit 1 warrior, that's 1 point of infamy. So I only got 2 infamy points across 2 battles, so I effectively won this game using Despot Infamy. Thank you very much. So yeah, this was a great match. I got very lucky with some of my draws and my quests and things like that, but also being efficient with your aiding and when to quest and which items to refresh is all key to playing the Vagabond really well. And I thought this was such a fun game. Very strong matchup by my opponents. A lot of fun. So thank you guys, Decoy, Q, and Kaz, and I will see you guys all next time.